Final Fantasy XIV is now moving forward into its next decade. We have a fan festival planned and we have some pretty big announcements lined up, with the determination to embark on a second iteration. We're rethinking everything from scratch to evolve the game with new goals. That comes from a new interview Yoshi P gave. Though granted, it was translated with Google, so but the point remains, Final Fantasy XIV is about to undergo some rather large changes. And Yoshi P even gave examples in this interview. Buckle up, we have a lot to talk about. Hello everybody, it's your boy Jmulls. And are we dropping another moon? The interview that Yoshi P gave was to an outlet called Invent. It's a Korean website, so the original article was in Korean. Now, I don't speak Korean, maybe to your surprise, but I do have access to Google Translate. But one of the biggest takeaways from Yoshi P there was this overall discussion about the limited time a lot of players have when it comes to playing an MMORPG, a rather time-intensive genre. And one of the main points he made was that for a lot of veteran players, you kind of know what to do. Go get your 450 tomestones for the week and then do whatever you want. But for newer players, after you get that 450 number, it can be rather confusing as to what you're actually supposed to do with the game. So one of the things Yoshi P actually suggested that the game may do is when you log in every day, it might go, hey, how long are you going to be able to play today? Couple of hours? Are you going to go for a big gaming sesh? Okay, well, what would you like to achieve today? Would you like to go get more player power? Would you like to go consume some story? What is it that you want to actually do today? And then based on your replies, the game would suggest activities for you to do with your limited time or your extended time. I think this is a really neat idea, though, my opinion, have us have a toggle in the options to be able to turn it off, because I hate having to minimize all the different tabs the game throws into my face whenever I first log in. But I think for newer players, and especially for when a patch comes out, having a system like this could be really dang nice. One of my least favorite parts about Final Fantasy XIV, funnily enough, comes from patch day, when you log in and then you have to just go look up the patch notes to find out where you actually have to go for new content that comes out, for where the story is, that's not the MSQ. And I think if they can incorporate some in-game way to just say, hey, you want to go do the new raid? You want to go do a raid? Yeah, well, go over here, you can start the quest. Make it more apparent, make it more obvious, and that could be a massive step in the right direction. Now, it's not going to fix any of the actual content itself, but it would be a nice change. And you may be going, well, Jmulls, you kind of led the video off with a quote from Yoshi P, implying way more than just a survey when you log in. What's the deal here? Well, one of the other things that Yoshi P alluded to is the changing state of tomestones. What if a player just simply doesn't care about player power? For instance, what if you already have all the gear you want for lack of a better word, that season or that tier? Well, then tomestones are just kind of not that important unless you're trying to gear an alt. But what if you just, even then, don't care about gear? Well, what Yoshi P laid out is that maybe the game will allow you to use those tomestones on other things outside of just gear. What if they give you a swath of mounts and glamour, or just something along those lines that you can also purchase with your tomestones? So it's not just about getting item level upgrades, it can be about getting cosmetics and stuff like that. It feels to me like an offshoot to their design from things like the Deep Dungeon or the upcoming Variant Dungeon, finding ways to take one piece of content and have that appeal to a wide range of players and tastes. Now, personally, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the idea of putting mounts available right alongside item level upgrades with tomestones. Sure, I imagine there are some players that don't care about item level upgrades, but at the same time, if you do care about item level upgrades and you care about cosmetics, then you're actually forced to make a choice between, do you want an upgrade or do you want a cosmetic? I remember playing World of Warcraft Mists of Pandaria Remix. That was not a fun decision back then. There's a reason they scrapped that when it comes to Legion Remix. We would absolutely have to wait to see the actual execution, but I'm not personally convinced of this singular direction for tomestones. At least for the ones that are capped. For the uncapped tomestones, yeah, maybe that could be a really interesting way to make use of those tomestones that aren't just save them up for a relic. But for the capped ones, I'm not convinced. I believe that these things, which have been taken for granted until now, can be elevated to a higher level in online gaming services and entertainment, and that's why I'm currently considering this direction. I hope to realize it in the near future. However, I'll stop here, as I think anything more than that will be a hint to competitors. This reads to me like one of the biggest issues they have identified for Final Fantasy XIV right now is the reward structure, and I would agree. And it sounds like they have big plans and big aspirations for renovating the reward structure for Final Fantasy XIV. I think that can go a very long way if they're able to nail it. Because think about all the different pieces of content they have implemented into the game over the years that is just kind of dead after a few weeks because there's nothing really incentivizing players to continue running that content. Heck, that was one of the biggest issues with variant dungeons for the longest time. It's like, yeah, it was a cool piece of content, but why would you do it after like the first month? I have talked about for a while now where I think one of Final Fantasy XIV's biggest weaknesses philosophically is just how it designs content for a long-term grind. What do I mean by this? A lot of the time when you run content in Final Fantasy XIV, it can be super fun and engaging for a couple of times. But when you have to repeatedly do that same thing over and over and over and over again, unless you really like doing repetitive things like that, it'll get boring quickly. And sometimes for the rewards, it just asks you to, hey, do this thing a whole bunch of times. We're not going to really vary up the experience. It's just going to be, do this one thing again and again and again and again and again and again. And for me at least, the moment my mind makes that connection, I just tune it out and stop caring about that content quickly. So I think there's two main things they need to really address when it comes to FF14. Fix the reward structure. Fix the rewards, make them far more exciting and incentivizing, and make that carrot on the stick way more sweet. Because I'll be honest, a lot of the glamour they have put out in Dawn Trail to incentivize a lot of content just hasn't done anything for me. Like, I think there have been maybe 2 sets. One comes from a leveling dungeon. The other comes from like the initial tomes you got with the expansion that I actually cared about with this expansion. Outside of like the artifact gear you get for getting a job to level 99. Like outside of those things, the glamour in the game has done nothing for me. So if the content is just trying to reward glamour, yeah, it's personal preference, but I lose any desire to just run the content for glamour if I don't like the glamour. So if they can change the reward structure for content going forward to appeal to a more wider range of interests and aesthetics, I think that could be a massive step in the right direction. But also if they can change how content is actually played in the game to where it doesn't feel so hyper repetitive after you do it once or 5 times or whatever, that itself can also go a long way. I think the biggest takeaway here for me isn't necessarily to break down like specific words or examples that Yoshi P gave here. It's to look at the broad brushstroke going on here. They're admitting that there's a lot of like systemic, fundamental issues with the core of Final Fantasy XIV, and they want to address them moving forward. And I've talked about before, the biggest issue Final Fantasy XIV had developmentally was that it stuck to its guns far too often and became way too formulaic. If we're willing to take that formula and say, hey, maybe this worked before, but maybe we need something new and fresh moving forward, that could have a rippling effect down the line that could make content in the overall game state way better. They could mess it up though. We have to just have that in the back of our minds here. They could mess it up, but it's a risk. I have been of the opinion that Final Fantasy XIV needs to be willing to take way more risks. So to me, I view this as a good thing overall. I am also really interested to see what other changes they're willing to make to the core of Final Fantasy XIV. I want to see job changes, changes to the reward structure, changes to content. These are big asks, but I do think Final Fantasy XIV needs to change these big fundamental things going on with the game, because I think this game can be way better than what it currently is. And I truly do hope to see these changes down the line. They won me back already when it comes to the story. I am utterly engrossed by it. I am so excited to see where the story goes from here. Win me back when it comes to gameplay, because my desire to log in every day and play Final Fantasy XIV, that hasn't existed in a long while, but I wanted to, and I think they can make the changes to bring that desire for me personally back. All eyes on FanFest. Yeah, all eyes are on FanFest. Every one of them. I do not think they're going to drop another moon. Probably. I mean, never say never, I guess, but I imagine that line from this interview is going to be the one that gets clickbaited all the time. I mean, let's be fair, we might do it with this video. But I am not expecting anything in the lines of like what A Realm Reborn did for Final Fantasy XIV. I don't think we're doing that again. But maybe we could get some version of that when it comes to moving away from what this game has done for almost a decade at this point. Be willing to allow this game to experiment and to try new things and to branch out and to take those risks it so desperately needs and craves. You still want to feel and look and play like Final Fantasy XIV, and it's a difficult line to straddle. Believe me, I've seen other games try to do this as well, and sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't, Halo. It is a difficult line to straddle, but I want to see this game bigger, I want to see it better, and I think in order to become that, it needs to take these risks. It needs to be willing to say, okay, let's try something new here, let's experiment, let's see if players actually like this. And here's to the future. And here's also where you come in. Leave a comment down below with what element of the game you would most like to see them change, and also what element to the game would you like to see them not touch at all. I think being able to identify both is really important. Personally, I would love to see some good job changes to make the actual gameplay experience and gameplay loop of Final Fantasy XIV more exciting and more tantalizing for me. Also, please do something with grand companies that could be so cool we just don't do anything with them. For Gridania, because the others suck. And while you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. This game may have a sphinx-shaped problem. With the events of 7.3, many people thought they were going to aim Eureka, but she's showing up in 7.4, and I think she may have some long-term stories still to tell. If you want to find out more, you should check out this video right here for more. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again!